We're going to open this up to the audience now. We have a mic here in front. If anyone has a question, just please come up to the front and ask your question to the candidates or we are talking.
Figured if I got to ask all those questions, I could ask one. I'll address this to Mayor Barnett. I've tried to do a little bit of development in the town of Magrath, and I recognize that when we develop, when we build, there needs to be regulations, there needs to be permits that are taken out. I guess my concern is that as of late, I know the town has really tried to impress upon people that if you're doing any development, you need to take out a permit. You need to address the town. My concern is that I'm seeing situations come up in the town where people are developing and they're not taking out permits or they're not doing what the town asks them to do. For example, when I built my last house, I was told that I could not survey the property myself. And every other house I've done, and I think I've been out 2 inches on one of them. I'm placing it on the property. But I know there's been development recently where people have laid out the dig on their own. I guess what I'm asking is who is enforcing these development agreements and these development guidelines?
Pass this to Brendan. The Municipal Planning Commission, which I don't sit on, follows the rules that are the town has bylaws that the Municipal Development Committee must follow. And I know what you're saying by some people don't get permits and others do, and what do we do about that to enforce that? And I know a gentleman personally that has done that. And so the town administration informs them, and we all like to be fair or friendly or non-controversial in the town of Magrath, and so often nothing really happens. Mr. Woolsey, that would be true of it. I don't know about laying out your own home. I know we had an issue before in a subdivision when that happened, and it caused us all kinds of grief with the elevations. And so we've kind of gone away from laying out our own homes. But lots of the rules are enforced by MPC, and administration further enforces those rules if they don't happen.
If I could just make one comment. So I paid $1,500. I didn't really want to make a big issue of this, but it cost me $1,500 to have someone come in and lay out my property. And I guess what I'm saying is, so if I have to pay that $1,500 and the next person down the road decides that they're going to do it themselves and they don't pay a cent, do I get a refund? Fair enough.
I would hope that everybody follows the same rules. The rules that I think you probably know somebody that's not doing that has done that themselves. And NPC, and maybe some from NPC could comment on that, please, if that's what the rule is for that.
I would like to talk about the Municipal Planning Commission. Both these gentlemen on each side of me also serve on that. The most thankless and awful town assignment that anyone could ever be given. However, it needs done. What happens in so many instances is unless someone brings something to our attention, Municipal Planning Commission go along happily, believing that our land development bylaw officer has followed all of the rules, etc. So we're counting on that to a large degree. The problem that comes to Municipal Development Commission Committee is that when someone tries to sell their land they need a real property report. And along comes all of the checking that needs to be done to make sure that that is accurate and correct. And these gentlemen could both respond to this. We get all kinds of requests that say, so-and-so laid out their own basement and it's diagonal practically on the lot. Can we get a waiver that lets us sell our home? Because, you know, there's so many instances that you'd be surprised at how many things have to be brought into the bylaw because, pardon me, compliance with the land development. Municipal planning committee is not a committee that makes the rules, as the mayor said, but we are extremely driven by process. It's absolutely frustrating because most of us think there's an easy solution to this. Find out that our easy solution interferes with 20 things down the road. It's like if you try and plan one different Monday lunch program and find out that there was this and that and you didn't know, it snowballs. So I don't know if either of you would like to mention it. Ugliest committee the town ever has you sit on.
Okay, we need to keep it real brief. Real brief. Scott has done a wonderful job in his subdivision. He has obeyed all the rules, done everything right, and I applaud him for it. What does happen, and he's absolutely right, is sometimes the rules get bent, and we need to do a better job of finding those and correcting it. But one thing that we were able to do as the MPC, Municipal Planning Commission, we were able to do some changes and waivers to Scott's position so that he could make better use of his frontages and things, not according to what we were supposed to enforce, but we were able to make waivers because it made sense. There is lots that we have to do waivers to because they make sense, but we have a guideline and we do our best to follow it, but I applaud Mr. Woolsey because he's done a wonderful job.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience?
Which is the town a fair amount of money. I'm wondering how high a priority is renewable energy to the current council or anyone, and should the town be making use of solar, geothermal, wind, or any other types of energy to maybe save money and allow to do more infrastructure, do more XSS programs.
We, the town right now, are discussing some of the, this would be a solar project or a back, thing. They're looking at putting them in. The difficulty you have is they want to have a larger acreage. They're looking at 9 acres right now, but to put it in, they're saying that's not big enough in most cases. Some cases are saying that's fine, but they want to have a 25-year lease on the land. So if you were to put 9 acres out of the community and say, well, it's going to tie it up for 25 years, it becomes a challenge for tomorrow. That yes, you're going to make some money for the next 25 years, but if you want to develop that land or adjacent to it, you can't. It ties you up. Many years ago, the town made an agreement with the Hutterite colony to, when they did the drainage project for the lagoon. And the lagoon was bought land that we bought from the Hutterites, and part of the agreement at that time was that they got to farm it for, and don't believe this, 100 years. And they pay us a fee. They pay us for whatever they raise, a portion of their crop. It's not a good program, and I think that's where we're a little shy when we even say a 25-year one. It makes it hard to tie up that kind of land without a big dollar coming back. So that's where we're at now. but we are looking at it. But we don't have any big piece of land. We tried to use the lagoon, but we know that would be a fight in court either the water rights may not go to court, but we're going to have to break a contract that we made, that a previous council made.
I think we have a lot of opportunities here for renewable energy. One of our resources I don't think we've tapped into is our drinking water comes down from Jensen's Reservoir down a huge hill. When it hits Magrath, it actually hits reducing stations. I would propose that we take that project of trying to somehow harness that energy instead of just reducing it, take it to a university and say, hey, is there any way that we can generate power from this? Is there something you can put in the pipe that would make a turbine spin so that, you know, instead of just reducing it, we're actually using it? Up where the water's at, there's a drop there, we could put in some kind of generator. We need something to offset some of our cost of running this town. If we could get some power, we could put in a lot more streetlights, I believe, and offset the cost so then it becomes more affordable. Solar, definitely. One community, I was talking to a friend up by Okotoks and said their streetlights are solar. And he said, but we had to buy them to put them on our lot, basically. And I said, oh, okay. But there are different options out there. I believe that's something that we need to look at.
One quick, Mr. Godlington, and then we'll move on.
Pardon me, just one quick thing. When it comes to the solar power that the town has been looking into, a lot of different power savings. They're trying to make money where the town can make money, but like was said, they're looking for a large acreage for a long-term lease. And unfortunately, that large acreage isn't a slough or a alkali patch or anything. Where they wanted to do it is in prime agricultural land. And coming from an agricultural background, the old farmer comes out in me, and I am not in favor of taking good production agricultural land and turning it into that. We have lots of wasteland areas that can definitely be used if it's in the right spot, but I do not like the idea of taking production agricultural land that feeds us out of production. We can do without power, maybe. There's scandals, there's all kinds of things in the future, but we need food, and agricultural land is taken up so much by cities and things now that I'm against taking it back, and it's a 100-year lease also.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience?
Getting back to the subdivision question that was brought up, we went through this process this last year. If we had to do over again, it wouldn't go good. We sold a 1 acre piece of land, 4 houses are doing good. Revenue and taxes of the town desperately needs that thing. One aspect of the process that disturbed me greatly was how much the Old Man River Planning Commission told the board, the Planning Commission board. Everybody just sits back and just agrees until they say, sure, they know the laws, and the intricacies of everything. But this is our town, this is your town. They provide service for us, but it's ultimately the town and us that run the place. You need to stand up and tell them once in a while, this is not what we're going to do. And as far as surveying goes, we spent $5 grand on survey. I don't think it needs to be done for a long time. I think Mr. Burrell brought the point up in one meeting that by the time the survey for this lane needs to be done, could have been done in the third year. Someone else on the board said, no, we need to do a survey. Someone else on the board said, what's this going to cost you? $300? It was almost $5,000. Great. So $1,500 is pretty cheap. But I think we need to stand up. This is our town. This is your town. And you can't have building
thank you. I hear your pain, and we sit and just listen to the Old Man Regional Planning guys. They are there to provide us advice. It's our job as counselors to determine whether or not their advice is worth listening to. What I have found of value in their advice is the ability to look way down further than down the road further than I could ever imagine. And that is what we're paying them to advise us on. I know that many of us would do a quick fix that would mess something up somewhere else in the long term. And we aren't just sitting there, if you can imagine these guys sitting there saying, oh yes, Old Man Regional, you wise man. No, we don't. We think about it. We listen to what they have to say and we make a decision. Are we always right? No, we're not. You brought up something that was not exactly accurate. We weren't right on. But I still stand by the fact that they are our advisors.
Go ahead, Mr. Nish.
Two things. One, I believe that committee needs to be changed. I don't agree with people being assigned to that committee. Bless their hearts. They're volunteering their time. They're giving advice they probably have some expertise in. But I believe that's for elected officials to make those decisions. I believe that everyone that is elected should be on that council. And yes, that's another council to be on, but there's too much money involved to not say this person is being held accountable. Whoever's assigned, whether it's voted on or they're asked or whatever, thank you for doing that, but I believe that all elected officials should be on that committee. The second thing, the town does take that right to disregard what Old Man River said. They did it with the drainage ditch, okay? There was no public hearing, there was no public meeting, there was no notification to anyone in town about what the drainage ditch was. Okay, they violated their land use policy, and they shouldn't have. We should have been given some input for public safety, for utilities, for everything that goes in there. We should have had an opportunity to comment. Okay, now it's done. I don't know what the solution is, but safety still hasn't been talked about with that pond. We have hazardous material sitting right beside it. We have 18-wheelers rolling around with it with little kids right beside it. We have all kinds of issues from the CPR being there for 100 years. Did we take environmental precautions to make sure there's nothing in the ground from what the CPR had left there? I'm sorry, they disregarded Old Man's, I guess what they would have offered. I waited for that to come and they started digging and it never came. So.
Mr. Godwin?
Yeah, just one thing, Perry. My heart goes out to you. I sympathize. We made a decision on that, and one of the decisions was that it's looking down the road 20, 30, 40 years down, and you're talking about having a laneway and roadway so that the town can work on. You mentioned that 4 people would be building homes there. Well, all of a sudden now, to take in that laneway expansion to make a road, you're involving 4 people now that have to be involved and all say yes rather than one. And so the MPC chose to do what was recommended by ORSC, Old Man River Planning. Everyone had the right to appeal, which I understand Perry did, and it went to the appeal board, and the appeal board held up the MPC's decision. It's sad, and I was brokenhearted for Perry. Still am, but I certainly don't agree with everything that happens, but sometimes things happen for reasons we can't change.
Okay, questions from the audience?
I have a couple questions. First one is for Nish. You own that property that is also annexed to the town. If you become mayor, are you going to unannex it? And is that not a conflict of interest? Number 2 question. Do it 1 second. To everybody else is, do we want ATVs, quads, driving along there? Thank you.
Well,
first of all, I'd be crazy to say I don't want it annexed. It's worth far more in the town, so no. That's a simple answer. You know, I went up to the meeting on September the 6th, and I talked with the planner for Old Man River, and he said that would be unprecedented. There's no way that that could happen. And posed the question to him. I guess that made its way back to the rest of council. So, no, I would not do that. I believe that that piece of land is vital to the town of Magrath. I think that 2 ball diamonds on the other side of where those ball diamonds are sitting out there right now with a nice complex in the middle would look great. I believe there's all kinds of opportunities on that land out there for development. Unfortunately, I've hit a wall and I'm wanting to stop and sell it. So I don't believe it's a conflict of interest for that reason.
Any other question to answer of ATVs? I say no ATVs in town. We have a challenge already trying to deal with the traffic. I think we would just add to our bylaw issues if we had the bylaw officer trying to enforce that.
I knew this was going to be a hard sell, and I've been very interested in it for a lot of years. And Mr. Quinton, I totally respect his feelings on that. We've been kind of through this before. There's many towns that have done it very successfully, no problems. Just about the whole United States is doing it, highways, cities, everything. The problem is that 30, 40 years ago, there wasn't quads there. Now there are. 100 years ago, there wasn't cars. Do we still want to stay horses because that's what happened? Well, no, we let cars come in and stuff. It's time that maybe we allowed things under extreme regulations that mature adults are able to use them for mature adult things, not rot around. Everybody brings up, oh, well, the kids. It is not designed for the kids. If it ever goes this way, it's not for the youth. It is not for motorbikes running around or dirt bikes. It is only for quads for use with agricultural things, husbandry work, pulling harrows. There's 1,000 things that adults would use these expensive things for. They've got license and insurance, just like a car has, same kind of cost and everything, and they can't use them in the mountains and things anymore. They close them down for fire hazards and things. They're with regulations. They are not a problem, and I truly believe that.
I would like to go back to the response to Mr. Nate with regards to the possible conflict of interest if he was to be mayor and wants to develop the land. It's very simple. There will not be conflict of interest if we have bylaws and stand by those bylaws to everybody across the board, no matter who it is. The problem is sometimes when we try to make sense out of what we think that we need to make sense out of, and we make an exception for X reason, then there is no bylaws, there is no level field. We need to hold everybody accountable for what it is. And no matter if it's the mayor or it's a new neighbor that is moving into town, or somebody else who has a daughter who wants to develop a piece of land, the rules will be the same, so we need to encourage the development of what our neighbors try to do with the land, not try to cripple them or question their integrity or whatever it is that they have there. We're making a simple issue bigger than what it is. You own the land. You have the right to do what you want with your land. Let us see if we can help you develop that within the rules that they are in place. We don't have to make any exceptions. We just need to stay across the board everywhere around we go.
Do we have some more questions from the audience?
I have investigation about the SDS for our actually is a feature of our government spend like 113 million on SDS programs every year. mostly to the community preventing for crisis or provide help to each other. But I found our Magrath SDS is very different from the other. Whereas in totally 206 communities in whole our 191 joined the FCSS Alberta Association. But Magrath, because join this would you have to accept the oversight of how your funding is used. After the meeting, because the member fee is expensive and the traveling fee is expensive. But I have checked, the member fee is only 400 each year. And the traveling is just to Edmonton, 5 hours. I don't think it's very expensive. Second, the all nearby town, only Magrath didn't join BEW, FCSS, or like independent program, providing the many programs like Clear Home. I'm wondering, each year, for $146,000, just to provide like, I think it's less than 10 programs. How those money are used for? Are anybody keep tracking? And I'm wondering why those 10 programs need 4 employees, 4 full-time employees to run. That's my question.
Thank you. The FCSS Association, I talked to Ryan about that. It is, $400. I can't remember that fee. I'm sure it's about that. To go to a conference in Edmonton, the travel expense at 40-something cents a kilometer, and the conference fee. And we had decided that we joined, and I went one time to the conference, and it was very interesting. But we have thought that that is probably not money well spent to go to send a director or a town councillor to Edmonton. And so we haven't done that, that's right. As far as oversight, one thing that I did learn at that conference was that virtually every community has a different way that it uses its FCSS funding. I was surprised at that, they'd all be kind of like us. No, they're not. Cardston's way different. Other towns, I know they spend all their money on schooling for, girls who are unwed mothers. That was where they spent theirs. They had stuff like that. So there's no standard kind of way to do it. The oversight, I don't know. I know that when I've talked to other people, when FCSS funding first came out, the town said, we will keep our funding and we will control our programs, where a bunch of communities that had no programs, nothing, they're all banded together, and so they have a super organization. The people on the council are, I noticed that there's like one person for 2 different towns, so a town doesn't have the same amount of input as to what goes on. And so, like I said, we will reassess our FCSS, but again, we want to see what is best for the town. I think some of those programs in other towns, if you lived in Raymond, but there's a program in Tabor, would you do that? Some of them are offered there. Some of the smaller communities on the outskirts don't get as much access to the different parts. But like I said, I certainly think this is the time to reassess and look at FCSS in Magrath.
Yeah, I wanted to touch back into that feature, that program that you were mentioning at FCSS. For what I've been reading and for what I have heard you say about it, it sounds like a great plan. The thing that we need to remember is, again, we're talking about, even if it's $1 that we spend out of the town, it's $1 that we don't have again. So if we are using funds to whatever program we decide that it is good, the first thing we need to do is identify what are the needs. Do we actually need those programs? What is the population of the town that actually need those programs? Which ones in particular are we in need of? Not just because it looks good, we need to jump on it. Yes, there are a lot of features in it, and probably we can pick some of them. And like Mr. Dalvar mentioned, we can probably use other facilities in some other towns that are around us. But my point of view is, if we're going to use it, how much do we need it? We need to address what is needed, not what we want. What we can use with what we must, and what we can use out of that. It looks like a very complex program, to tell you the truth, of what I read. But I think that, again, go back to the beginning of my comment is, what is it that we actually need in the town?
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience?
Mr. Mitchell, I just wanted to ask you a question. Your comments about the ditch, along the ditch, you said the town violated rules. They didn't consult with people. And I just wanted to, I see the ditch as a piece of infrastructure that the town needs. I see that they were extremely creative in how they got the funds and how they made it into not just an infrastructure project, but a feature in the town. And does the town have to consult with people when they put in sewer? Do they have to consult with people when they put in services or any other infrastructure? Or did they have to consult with people to put in infrastructure to ditch?
Thank you for that question. Each landowners has discretionary and permitted uses, right? And you understand this. And to say we're just going to go through, they should rezone it to their control, and not even their problem. But to say that each parcel of land that they're going through falls into those permitted or discretionary uses, I don't believe that's the case. Is that kind of what you're wondering?
I'm a fat guy, but I can get up and down those steps a lot. If we want to provide services for the town, if we're consulting with people every time we want to put something in, that's a service, that's a need, are we not just slowing down the process?
I think the process is what we need. I think we need a process to notify people. Not all that one was notified, not one person. So to say, oh, we can do that, if we try to, okay, here's the example. When you were doing a follow-on garage, his garage was 6 inches over with the drill property report, and he was doing it for an hour. No, can't do it. This was never discussed by this committee. I mean, it should be. If they're to say, hey, this is a $5,000 or $10,000 grant, we say on this, I think a $4.5 million project should have had some public consultation. To say that we collect $1.5 tax a year, and I don't know what we're putting in, but it's considerable for our town to be putting into that with absolutely no public consultation, no public meeting, nothing. I'm not okay with that. I would have seen something different.
I'm guessing that everyone that land was impacted by it was made aware. It wasn't a surprise when the high-low showed up on their land. What I'm saying is, if you guys want to put in services for the town to bring more people in, absolutely do it, please, and don't wait.
Yes, Mr. Barnett.
I'll address a couple of things. And this is going to be an in-camera session, but so I'd like to go camera. However, Mr. talked about his land on Willow Gardens, that's what it's called, and he talked about the drainage ponds fact, who's going to contribute $200,000 to the town for that. The $200,000 contribution was what the engineer figured it would cost him to put his own drainage ditch or his own drainage retention pond on his own land. The town of Magrath agreed to pay $12,000 per acre for 5 acres to do the retention pond that you see in the town's interest there, that would join together on that piece of property. The public consultation thing, Mr. Hitch sat in those meetings with the engineers and with the town council as we discussed that, and they wanted input on what that would look like. And so we had into that. So I know he also had an opportunity to look and see what that ditch would look like and how it would affect his piece of property. So to say and have it used public consultation, I think, is a little bit unfair, because I think we've done our due diligence. That ditch, the section of ditch you see that's done along the highway there, Highway 62, belongs to Alberta Transportation. It's in their right of way. It is on nobody's property but theirs. And so they recently agreed to grant an easement to go across that piece of property to the town. So I believe we did our due diligence on that project.
Thank you. Remarks. We'll start, I think, down with Mr. DeMar. You have a minute and a half each. Please go ahead.
Hello. I'd just like to go back to the library. I didn't have a chance to make a comment on that. The cost to move Town Hall into the library building have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if that money was available, I would sooner put it into paving roads rather than putting it into Town Hall. I think once all the roads in town are paved, then we can talk about a new Town Hall. In closing, I'd just like to say that I'm excited to be part of this. I believe that I could do a great job on town council.
Again, I'd like to thank the Chamber for organizing this evening, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening. It's been a pleasure for me to serve on town council for the last 4 years. I look forward to serving another 4 years. In order to do that, I need your support. But I want to tell each one of you that if you ever have a concern or a question, don't hesitate to call. I'm like we heard earlier from Mr. Woolsey, I'm not much of a computer guy, and I don't like to put statements on the computer that might be not interpreted correctly. I'd sooner you phone me. I'll come to your home. You don't have to come to mine, although you're welcome to come. Again, thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to your vote.
Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate all the support. I wish that this gym was full, which means that there's a lot of people out there who don't know what's going on, unless you actually pass on the information that you got tonight here. So I really appreciate you guys can do that. I have never been on these councils. I don't know exactly many of these that they were talking about, the history behind it. But I am a project manager, facility manager, construction manager that have been in business for a lot of years. And I know the town needs a lot of infrastructure projects. A lot of them, they're going to need money that the town doesn't have. But there are ways to get those funds available to us. No everything is grants either. We can do things here in town. I'm willing to help, like some of those programs we're talking about, renewable energy. There's a lot of renewable asphalt machines that we can probably use to reduce our asphalt streets, bring them back to where they're supposed to be. We can do projects. We also talking about projects for the streets, for the sidewalks, for curbs, or curbs are in really bad shape. Many people also we don't have sidewalks, and some of us we don't want them. Some of us want them. Well, let's talk about with the town about what is it they actually we want to do in our town. Let's get everybody involved, not just put a sign, but actually let's talk to our neighbors. We have a lot of people who want to be involved. Let's
various different situations. And one thing that I learned is that a council is kind of like a sport team, a basketball team or a baseball team. And a good council, like a good team, has players, and they all play their position. Everybody's not trying to be the quarterback, everybody's not trying to be the point guard, but everybody has a position to play. And I think a good council will do that. And the council supports the council decisions. The people who are on that council each bring their own perspective. I know in my case, I ride a bicycle everywhere. In fact, when I think of crime safety, what comes to us? Ride a bike. You could ride a bike. You could move on a bike. Anyway, we live in a good place, and I'd like to see it stay that way. I don't want to see poison in the air, or poison plants, or poison animals. We need to put that perspective alongside the others. Sometimes we have to, and then I vote against it, but it's carried. But I appreciate the good town we live in. I've had a chance to see quite a bit of Canada. I ride my bicycle across the country. I've been to a lot of town halls and libraries and went to those as well, and ours are pretty good here. I like to see it stay that way. We had a pretty good start on election day, so thank you very much.
I think lots have been learned. Maybe you said that this is something I totally believe in. I've said this many times before, so excuse me if it sounds like old news, but we cannot compete with Lethbridge. We can't compete on the tax base. We can't compete in hospitals. But there's one thing that they cannot compete with us in, and that is we can be rural. We can be a rural community, so that we can, and that will attract people to this town, which will help us grow. Thank you.
I was remiss in mentioning one thing that I'm very proud of, and that is the partnership that the school division and the Magrath town of Magrath has worked hard, put together, that provided us with a cultural speaker, will provide us with a facility that is better, will provide us with a place to do our application, and kudos to Mr. Martin for the way that he did it. Infrastructure, we've heard a lot about that. Something that a lot of time ago, we asked for lots of community input. We had some for much. That's
restoration of the trail that is enjoyed by residents, county, and tourists alike. A new swimming pool with a splash park and other recreation facilities. To plan and systematically pave more streets. To provide more sidewalks and repair and maintain the existing ones we have. More street lights are in the works. I hope to help finish projects such as the wetlands, pond, and drainage of the north end of town, the northwest sewer and potable water extension, the head gates update, further north park commitments, and to promote and help the sustainable ag education program. If reelected, I will serve the community to the best of my ability. Thank you.
We have money set aside that is there for the pool. That's our development funds. There's some traffic lights put up by the pond, a flashing light for crosswalks, and a paved pathway that leads around those ball diamonds on the new trail that will be built around so we can access more of the trail system. So that's something I'm looking forward to watching us complete over the next year. It'll take us that long to get it all in place. The other thing I'm looking forward to is that we're planning our pool restorations. I say the money is set aside some money, but the cost is probably closer to $1 million, and we're probably halfway there. So we're looking for some grant money that when it becomes available, we're not always get approved. The infrastructure we're talking about the last couple of years on Q3, council meeting will be some more around town. So we've been trying to get the money. And then money to spend. I think we'll get some more in. But that's right. And it's been a challenge for years. I've been on councils that say, hey, we spend on, and what do you the first 10 feet of it. So it's a challenge each year. But it did change when it changed 4 years ago or 3 years ago. So that all went away. So I was asking you and if I can ask you to ask for it. Thank you.
This is the application for the wetland project grant. This is the actual application. It says provisions advocating to acquire some land from the adjacent property owner in order to secure sufficient right of ways to accommodate the drainage project. Is basically what it says on this paragraph. This was, I said at the start that I got the town in May 2016, and this document is September 30th of 2015. This is how the town operates. They are strong-arming people into what they want. And I'm sorry, this grant application shows that to me. I'm certainly I'm staunch supporter of your right and to say that any kind of that's your opinion, and I don't agree with it. It's one of the places to run, and sometimes transparency. I've said that over and over to
The group I'm referring to is this council. We're making opposition, we're facing criticism, and we will face those who are desperate to prove us wrong. Don't be distracted by it. Meeting is the capacity to translate vision into reality. On October 16th, vote Magrath for mayor. I'll continue to use my leadership abilities, experience, and dedication to make this the world's best community.
Thank you. I don't hesitate in saying that these are all good people. And they're all committed to giving their best to the town. I wish you all the best on Monday. And if there's some that aren't returning into council or mayor, I want you to know that I personally greatly appreciate all that you've done. Appreciate everybody coming out, learning tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to go.